Good morning, Devils fans. We're going to be talking about Andy Green. Wait, that's not quite right either. Today's spotlight is going to be on Travis Green, born December 20th, 1970, in Castlegar, British Columbia. Green had an extensive playing career before his coaching career, where he started out in juniors in the WHL with the Spokane Chiefs from 1986 to 1989. Where partway through that final season, he'd be traded to the Medicine Hat Tigers to complete his time in juniors. At the 1989 NHL entry draft, Green would be taken 23rd overall by the New York Islanders. He'd played 3 seasons in the AHL with the Capital District Islanders before making his NHL debut in 1992-93, making the roster with the New York Islanders. He'd get his first point with his first NHL goal in his second game on November 21st, 1992, against Mike Vernon in a win over the Calgary Flames. In total, he would play 6 seasons in New York, including the best one of his career in 1995-96, with all career highs of 25 goals, 45 assists for 70 points in 69 games. Green would end up playing 6 years with the Islanders, scoring 92 goals, 145 assists, 237 points in 388 games. In 1997-98, Green would be traded from the Islanders to the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, where he would spend 2 seasons, although he would return to the franchise later in his career. As a free agent, he'd play for 2 years in Phoenix with the Coyotes before spending 2 years in Toronto, before spending 2 years in Boston, where he was eventually bought out and would then return to Anaheim, where he'd only play in 7 games before being claimed on waivers by Toronto, where he would close out his NHL playing career. Across 14 years, Green would score 193 goals, 262 assists for 455 points in 970 regular season games. He'd make playoffs in 7 of those years, scoring 10 goals, 11 assists in 56 games. The farthest he'd make it, the Eastern Conference Finals with the Maple Leafs in 2001-2002, eventually losing in 6 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Just shy of 1,000 games and a Stanley Cup Finals, Green didn't collect much hardware, but he does have a silver from the 96 World Championship, gold in 97, and along with a gold in 2007 from the Spengler Cup, all representing Canada. With essentially no break, Green would jump right into his coaching career, accepting a job in 2008 with an assistant coach and assistant GM role with the Portland Winterhawks of the WHL. After spending multiple seasons there, in the 2012-13 season with the Winterhawks, the head coach would be suspended, leaving Green to take over with the interim head coach tag and would finish the final 47 games with a 37-8-0-2 record. They would go on to win the Ed Chenoweth Cup, but ultimately lose to the Halifax Mooseheads in the Memorial Cup final. In 2013, Green would be hired by the Utica Comets when they were still affiliated with the Canucks. And in 2014-15, he would lead them to the Calder Cup Finals, where they would lose in 5 games to the Manchester Monarchs. On April 26, 2017, Green would finally find himself back in the NHL when he was named head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. In total, he'd coached 5 seasons in Vancouver, making the playoffs a single time in 2019-20, ultimately losing to Vegas in the second round in 7 games after winning in the qualifying round and the first round, and then losing in the second. Green would be fired on December 5th, 2021, along with the Canucks GM Jim Benning, after starting the season with an 8-15-2 record. Again, I talk on this a bit later, but really, he wasn't given a lot to work with there in Vancouver, so I would not put too much stock into that record or of being fired, because NHL coaches get fired. Basically, find me one who wasn't. After that, he did take a year hiatus where he would go over to Europe and participate in a slew of coaching clinics, and would take this time to recalibrate his coaching approach and just gain new insights to deepen his coaching knowledge. After that, finally, on June 22nd, 2023, Green would be hired as an associate coach with the New Jersey Devils. So, what can we expect on the ice from Green? At least at the NHL level, there's been good and bad as far as pure on-ice results and metrics go. Like I said, he wasn't really given a lot to work with in Vancouver, but by all accounts, he's a great guy in the room. In 3 full seasons with the Canucks, they were one of the worst in rush chances for and rush chances against across the entire NHL. Now, while Green will have a say in the offense here, it's fairly well known our bench is run by committee, and we already have an offensive system that doesn't need many tweaks and is already one of, if not the best, rush offenses in the league. So there's not really too much to worry about those numbers coming out of Green, because he's not going to have too much to do on the defensive end outside of, structuring the offense around that, as far as getting back. It's not his system, it's Lindy's. He'll just be there to help give his thoughts and opinions. I trust Lindy to make tweaks and adjustments, based off of the feedback of his staff. But generally, I expect us to go in with much of the same from last year. Where I think Green is going to make his biggest impact is obviously with the power play scheme. I've said this on the day he was hired. I think he came into his interview with kind of a clear enough plan on how to run our units. And that was really enough to get him the job, since really that's the biggest area of opportunity, given mostly everything else clicked for us last year. In Vancouver, the power play waffled. His first year it ranked 9th in the NHL to 22nd to 4th to 25th. Again, he wasn't given a lot to work with there, and I'm always of the opinion that outside of raw talent, consistency and synergy between players is what builds a strong power play, not necessarily the coach that puts the system in behind it, although obviously that does have an effect if it's completely abysmal or the most amazing thing. If you're middle of the road, it's the other things that are really going to help it shine through more. If you like patterns, it would seem that his power plays get their best results in odd year starting seasons. So if you look at the calendar, we should be in for a treat this year. Final thing for on-ice related stuff. Green was teammates with Fitzy. Just so happens today is Fitzy's birthday, so happy birthday, shout out to him. But Green and Fitz played together in the 90s with the Islanders, again with the Leafs, and then again with the Bruins. Hockey world is very small. We know Fitzy likes bringing in people he knows, as he has done across the board, generally speaking, in almost every facet of the organization. So, off the ice. Well, we know the guy's passionate about hockey, obviously. Even in the 1-year hiatus he has taken away from the game, he didn't even take it away from the game, as he went over to overseas to just get a new angle and lease on hockey, as coached and played over there, to see if he can add that to his repertoire to bring back over in his knowledge in the NHL. For purely off-ice, non-hockey related stuff, he does have his lovely wife, Sherry, 3 children, their sons Blake and Brody, and daughter Jordan. His son Brody has nonverbal autism, and while Travis isn't the most outspoken on the subject, mostly keeping his private life private, he has shown admiration for his time in Vancouver with their program Canucks Autism Network. So I'm sure at some point we will end up hearing about this. We know the Devils organization is very good about this outreach stuff. But again, Travis mostly likes to keep his life private, so if they don't bring it up, we're not going to pry too much into it. Likely his family will remain in Southern California, same as they did while he was coaching in Vancouver. Just given the resources and comfortability for his family out there, it makes a ton of sense that they'll do that. Going forward, as far as I can tell, this is a 1-year contract, but it's a coaching deal and an associate one at that. So you never know how long these things are even going to last. Multiple years, less than a year. It's a coaching contract. They don't really matter. I think given the wealth of talent that he has here, there's basically no way for Green to truly fail outside of the expectations that are being placed on him. But instead, is it going to be about him helping this team reach their ceiling? And I think that is where fans are going to judge him. Given his track record, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about, and I do trust Fitz and Lindy in this hiring. So, just me being me, I'm going to go into this very optimistic. I think top 10 power play in the league should be the bare minimum expectation for us. And if it's not met, we'll just have to see where the flaws were at to truly judge if it should come down on Green or not. Top 3. Again, very hard for guys that just got here, but 3, I'm going to go with Green's willingness to adapt. He has played and coached basically at every single level, from top-ish line guy, depth player, AHL, coach and player, WAHL, going over to Europe just to learn more after having, I would assume, we'll say, not the most successful stint as a head coach in the NHL, and now is given another chance to come on here. And that goes right into number 2 with he chose to come here. I'm sure he had other job offers. His resume, even outside of the NHL as a coach, is fantastic. And even the NHL record stuff is pretty good, especially given if you look at what he had to work with. And the fact that he did choose to come here, he said it in his interviews multiple times across multiple networks, that the reason he came here is he saw us as a way to win. we are a team, probably at least the best one he interviewed with, thinks for a chance to win the cup, which obviously is ultimately his goal, having not even made it there yet in his career as a player or a coach. And so at number 1 is going to be at least the most devil-specific thing I could get, and a great quote was he was asked about coaching Quinn and then coming here to coach Luke, a bigger version of Quinn. And he just said that, coaching with Quinn was an absolutely fantastic thing. He was a young, up-and-coming, budding star, and he had a great time doing that. And while it was great coaching one Hughes, he cannot wait to coach 2 of them, as they are all just overflowing with talent. And I'm sure we all agree with him there. And that's going to really do it here on Travis Green. It is Monday, start of the work week. I hope everybody has a nice, easy start and hopefully complete day in that regard. That is going to cover this portion of the episode here on Green, and I will probably continue the series tomorrow with the next part of the coaching staff. So I will see you all tomorrow morning as always, and forever, let's go Devils.